It's now time for Remember When with Uncle John. John Guess, Ouachita County's resident storyteller and local historian. Sit back now and enjoy a walk down memory lane as John recalls the days of yesteryear in his own unique way. You never know, some of it might even be true. So here's Uncle John, along with his trusty sidekick, Kelly Blair.
Back on Remember When with Uncle John. Well, here we are at Rasslin Wednesday. Who you want to talk about here today, Johnny?
Well, tomorrow is the birthday. He'll be 72 years old of one Cowboy Bob Orton Jr.
Hey, I like that guy.
72 years old tomorrow. Born in Kansas City, November the 10th, 1950. He was one of the henchmen. He was Roddy Piper's bad guy henchman.
Right hand man, yes sir.
Guy that had his arm broke for 20 years.
Exactly, absolutely.
In a cast,
Used that cast in all his matches.
But the guy's been around a long time. He won 25 championships.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's hard to believe. But he was in the corner of Piper and
Mr. Wonderful,
and Mr.
Paul
Wonderful, against Mr. T and Hulk Hogan, the big WrestleMania throwdown.
The main event of the first WrestleMania ever. I mean, that puts you in the Hall of Fame right there.
But Cowboy Bob, he was around. A lot of people think, that he only never worked for anybody else, But he worked all the territories. And
he was in the original Starrcade, wasn't he?
He was in the original Starrcade. Of course, his daddy was Cowboy Bob Orton Sr., and his son is Randy Orton.
Yep. So
he's got, a pretty – of course, his brother was the famous Barry O, who was, a jobber in the WWE,
I'll be honest, I didn't know Barry was his brother.
Yeah, Barry O. And that, he kind of faded into obscurity because of some of the WWF scandals, with
right.
Pat Patterson and Terry Garvin and, what all that's about, and everything. But, yeah, Cowboy Bob Jr., man, he's been around a long time. He wrestled for Bill Watts. Wrestled in Georgia, in Florida. He was in Florida a long time.
Yeah, Carolinas,
wrestled for Eddie Graham in Florida. But, he'll always be remembered, as being, in that with Piper and Orndorff. And be remembered for having his arm broke for 20 years,
And Cowboy Bob Orton just possibly could be the most underrated technical wrestler out there because there's nothing the man couldn't do in the ring.
That's right.
Piper himself said Bob Orton could pick up a 300-pound man and just carry him around the ring and suplex him and flip him over and twist him up and all that. And he said, dude, you're going to have to start making some mistakes on purpose because people aren't going to believe you're that good.
That's right. He was trained by his daddy, which was, his dad was a very technical, his dad was an AAU wrestler, and his dad, was a part owner in one of the territories. Trained by his daddy, debuted in 1972, retired in 1999. He's come out of retirement for a few, one-off deals, different, contests where he didn't actually do much wrestling, but, he was in the ring, But a technical wrestler, a brawler, but, more or less kind of a guy that stood behind the scenes, and kept his mouth shut and looked menacing, but, made a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Him and Piper were a tremendous combination, the way they could play off each other and all that kind of good stuff. And one of the most devastating moves in all of wrestling, the superplex.
Right.
The suplex off the top rope. And back in the 80s, he was the only one that did that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. He made the circle there, Piper's pit. He was always standing behind Piper there, in Piper's pit, and he was always ready to club somebody with that cast, But he's a well respected wrestler, all over the country in the territory days, and has remained respected. He makes the autograph shows and all those kind of things, and of course he's the father of Randy Orton.
There you go.
Who has made a fortune in wrestling,
Yeah, and one of the best out there.
One of the best.
Randy Orton can go with anybody.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yep, that's going to wrap up Remember When with Uncle John here for today. We do thank our wonderful sponsors, however, including ProMed Ambulance Service.
1-800-634-0436. Give them good folks a call.
Also, Sherwin-Williams House Paint at 315 Jefferson Street, right here in Camden. For all your interior and exterior painting needs, give Greg Bradshaw and his staff a call at 836-8125.
And the Shopper's Guide. Go down and see JJ. If you got some stationery needs, you need some business cards, whatever you need, go down to the Shopper's Guide and see JJ Lindsay.
And, folks, if you talk to somebody, they're like, oh, man, they talked about Cowboy Bob Orton. I hate that I missed that. Just tell them, well, listen, you can go back and listen to the podcast on Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or anywhere else you can find podcasts, including our very own YesRadioWorks.com Facebook page.
Absolutely.
All right, John, we'll see you tomorrow, man.
See you tomorrow, Kelly.
You've been listening to Remember When with Uncle John on Y95. This broadcast can be heard each weekday morning at 6:45 on South Arkansas's favorite station, Y95.